For the
acceptable,
Sunday
fun,
mainstream
and
media
social,
political
even
pundit
though
and
its
talk shows,
effects
there
can
is
be as
Inside the
destructive,
Eye
if
Live,
not
where
even
we
more,
break
as
down
using
some
narcotics.
weekly
It's
mainstream
so
media talking
normalized
points
that it's the
before
only
the
drug
talking
that
points
we have
even
to
get aired.
justify not
Add
taking,
in some
even when alcohol
entertaining
consumption
stories,
contributes
weather,
to
cats,
approximately 3 million
intriguing and
deaths each
informative
year,
guests,
according to
and
the
you
World
get one
Health
of the most
Organization.
listened to Saturday
Hence,
morning
customary
streaming media
beliefs aren't
political
always the
talk shows
best
going
guidelines.
today. And
Musashi,
it's
who
all
has
right
lived as a
here on our
Ronin as
flagship
well as a
station,
hermit, spent
Revolution
significant
Radio at
amounts of time separated from
freedomslips.com. So
society and its
join me,
norms.
the Fetch,
One of
for
the benefits of
Inside the
such
Eye
solitude
Live every
is that it
Saturday
shields
morning at
us
10
from
o'clock
outside
a.m. Eastern.
influences
It
and
is
lets us
truly
watch the world
intelligent
from a
media
distance.
for the
This makes
politically
it
aware.
easier to independently decide what's beneficial to our lives and what isn't. 16. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. Miyamoto Musashi carried a long and a short sword, not because he wanted to show off his weaponry, but because he was skilled in fighting with two swords. And carrying two swords was the way of the warrior.
This is
Radio. I am your host, Robbie Davidson. Welcome. We got lots of people coming in here. Rob says, enjoy it while it lasts. Sorry, that wasn't Rob. We got Edmonton Convoy. You were on camera. All sorts of technical issues here tonight, but we're going to get into it. Apologize for that. Hey, Patricia, good to see you. Hey, Tina, nice to see everyone here. Let's just get things going here. Doom. All right. So we're into the big topic tonight, which is the incredible truckers convoy protesting for freedom. And it is getting huge, massive. It is spreading to other countries. We're going to get into some news articles to get you up to date. If you haven't found out what's going on in Canada, and who would have thought passive Canadians starting a worldwide revolution? Truly, so many countries now are joining in, and it is unbelievable. And so much stuff happening here today in the capital, Ottawa, Ontario, and you have people driving from every location across Canada, even America, crossing the border, coming up here in Canada to check everything out. It is wild, to say the least. We've got a great special guest this evening. He's actually been doing a ton of stuff on the streets. He was out for the Edmonton, I think, at the legislative grounds here today. He's going to talk a little bit about that, but also what he's been seeing it is so encouraging what's going on right now. For the first time, I think a lot of Canadians are really excited just seeing such unity of all walks coming together and saying, hey, this is important. We got to stand for this. And sure, there's going to be some bad actors. You can never prevent that, but there's a lot of people watching out for that. And I don't believe it's going to get to the point of what happened in the States. But of course, there will be provocateurs. So I want to say 100%, we're not for any violence. Peacefully protesting is a human right. It is the right thing to do. We need to stand for people that are standing strong when it comes to these type of topics. So I wanted to start real quick, just get you up to date with a little bit that's been going on. And it is making international news. Of course, the Canadian news is downplaying it. And first of all, they said it was a fringe minority. But now, guess what? They're saying, the prime minister has to go into hiding. And they're saying that the protests are going to become massive and they're unruly and they're calling us all sorts of different names. Of course, they love to smear. But the reality is that this is really growing. I haven't seen anything like this in Canada. The numbers are staggering with what we're seeing. And we'll get into a lot of that tonight. So if you are not familiar with what's going on, get ready, because there's so much to get to tonight. Let's start off with Tucker Carlson covering exactly what's going on in Canada. And we're going to go through a lot of different coverages. We'll be talking with Devin. We'll get his thoughts on everything. I want to really let you know exactly how big this is becoming, how many people are covering this, and really what this is all about.
Canada has just imposed a vaccine mandate for truckers. This in addition to so many other lunatic corona restrictions. Well, finally, they've had enough. Thousands of truckers assembled in Vancouver this weekend to protest. They formed a freedom convoy. Their destination, the Canadian capital of Ottawa. The convoy is more than 40 miles long. They've raised more than $6 million in donations. The government is cracking down trying to stop this. Now the Prime Minister, so-called, of Canada, Justin Trudeau, says he's had a COVID exposure. He needs to isolate for 5 days. That means he cannot meet with the convoy, with actual voters, when it arrives in the capital city. Trudeau also told his country the truckers are just a fringe group.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians.
Oh, so they're not really Canadians. Probably racist, too. I'm sure we'll hear that. Benjamin Dichter is a spokesman for the Freedom Convoy. He's going to join us tomorrow, but he joins us now. Mr. Dichter, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Tell us why you're doing this. What's the point of this convoy?
Well, it's simple. I mean, we've seen Canada go from a country of Justin Trudeau's promises of sunny ways into dark authoritarian oppression and control.
Yes.
We want two things. We want to get rid of the vaccine mandates and the passports. And the passports that's a really concerning one. Yesterday, it was my first time ever crossing the border in my truck with my digital passport. And I held my phone up to the border agent to give him the QR code. You know what he said to me? Oh, it's okay, I don't need it. So what do you mean you don't need it? He said, oh, your phone already popped up on my screen and is correlated with your passport. Can you think of that? Can you believe that? So they know everybody who's coming up to the border before they're there, and they're tracking them. Now, maybe it's outlandish, but what's to prevent the government from introducing that across Canada and not limiting it to just borders? And you guys are getting it as well, and you can thank us for it, because apparently, according to our sources within the media and within government, we have some close ties. Apparently, the Trudeau government, the Biden administration had no interest in it. But the Trudeau government lobbied and requested the Biden administration to introduce this. We don't know why. We don't know the terms of the deal. Are they going to be trading intelligence back and forth between Canada and the U.S. tracking cell phones? Of course, we have no idea. But this is where we're going if this does not stop. That's why this is the line. This is where it ends.
Well, I mean, two things. One, you drive a truck for a living. Your country and ours, thousands of multiple credentialed intellectuals who are paid to think about this stuff. Why is it falling
Yes.
to you to connect the obvious dots? God bless you for that. And second, do you think that you can stop this with your trucks?
Why does it follow us? Because we're the ones who actually suffer the repercussions. We often see, we talk about Alberta being Canada's energy sector. I was in Alberta and Saskatchewan just before COVID. And Tucker, I spent a lot of time traveling through Latin America. I couldn't believe it. It looked like a third world country. It scared me. And that was before COVID. So now these people who've had their industries crushed, their lives crushed, COVID comes along, and now they're treated like insects by the bureaucracy.
Exactly, by insects. Wow. Benjamin Dichter, I hope you will come back. I found that really inspiring, your bravery and the way that you explained it as clearly as you did. Thank you very much.
You're a hero to all of us, and don't thank me. Thank all those guys who are on the road right now fighting for our freedom.
Amen. Thank you.
Devin, and we'll get his context and see what's happening. How's it going, Devin?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh,
Yeah, I can hear my own voice. That's okay. We'll just I'll push through it.
We'll just plow through it. So yeah, maybe you can comment a little bit. Devin actually goes to my church. He's been heavily involved with all of the tyranny and shutdowns of Grace Life Church. He was on the ground documenting that from day one. And since then, he has been talking to so many people on the streets, covering pretty much everything that's going on, whether it's shutting down businesses, standing up and at the legislative grounds. And maybe you can comment a little bit about what inspired you and kind of where you got your start with how now you're getting into, I guess, journalism, talking about what's going on in Canada. What would you say it is?
I mean that's what I put on my Facebook page, independent journalist, because I don't really know. I'm just documenting what's happening. So basically, what happened when Grace Life had a fence put around it. I just happened to be on vacation because we had our newest child, and so I just rushed down there, and halfway through got the idea to start live streaming it. And that's how this all started. I made a Facebook page and started direct traffic there because we were using the Free James Coates page we had made. And actually, when you did that, now the audio is not there anymore.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's very.
No, that's
strange.
awesome. I now can't hear my own voice. So sorry, I got distracted. But basically, and yeah, ever since then, I just I use my Facebook page as a method of political commentary, evangelism, going out and trying to talk to these people from this freedom movement that they need more answers than just kind of a rah freedom thing, right? So basically, I try to explain the gospel to people as much as possible while I'm out there as well. And so that's basically what my Facebook page is about and how it started.
Maybe you can say what your Facebook page is, or you also have a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, and it's all just my name, Devin Davis. That's DEVIN DAVIS. And it's just me as a public profile, right? And then my podcast name is Bro Here's the Thing. That's what my name is on Instagram as well. And so you guys can follow me there as well if you want.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so maybe talk a little bit about what you've been seeing even locally here in Edmonton, because there was a convoy from Calgary to Edmonton and you were at the legislative grounds here today in support of Ottawa.
Yeah, so fortunately, I didn't have to work today like I thought. It all just worked out. And so basically, when we left our house today, um, we thought we were kind of going to be late. And what happened was is we just pulled out onto the highway in Spruce Grove and just joined the convoy because it was that long and just passing by our house at the time. So it was that easy to find. It was just across the entire city. And so we went to Atchison today, and I've got some footage of that as well on my Facebook page. But it was one of the most exciting things I've been involved in like 2 years, because there were thousands of people in Atchison at the Husky gas station today. It was packed with vehicles. People were out cheering. There weren't masks anywhere. My wife talked to a lady in the Husky that said this is the first time she's ever not worn a mask in a business in 2 years. So I mean, better late than never, right? Like we're happy that this is giving people the boldness to finally do it, right?
No, for sure. And I mean, you're just seeing so many incredible things happen, just not just across Canada, but now it's spreading into other countries. I have a clip I'm going to play here soon, but Australia, you've got Brazil, you've got I think Germany, many countries now are joining in. And who would have thought it would be Canada, right? To tell you the truth, I'm a little ashamed. I mean, I thought there's no way, everyone's too passive in Canada. Nothing's going to start here. And it's just crazy to me that like something so large has been started from Canada, and it's igniting right across the world.
Yeah, it is amazing. We finally have people uniting around something because I think it's tangible for them. A bunch of trucks piling into Ottawa and shutting it down actually will have an effect. They now can't. They have to notice it, right? And I think that's what people are being inspired by, because it's not just another rally. Our premiers and our prime minister just closed the blinds because this is actually going to stop them from moving.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I was looking and I found a roundup of different celebrities that were in support, and it's unbelievable to me when you see, like, obviously we talked about Elon Musk, right? But then you got Donald Trump Jr. He put out an entire thing on it, which was really, really encouraging with what he had to say. Joe Rogan has touched on it. You've got Rob Schneider. He really went big on it and stuff. You've got all these people, right? Jordan Peterson now, standing in solidarity and support. You got Russell Brand. I've got the clip with him getting into it and talking about it. I think he really does a really good job, bringing it all together. And also you got like just different people of backgrounds that are coming. Mike Fisher, Evangeline Lilly. I don't know if you've heard about this, right? Because she's, excuse me, she lives she was born about 15, 20 minutes away from me. But what's interesting about her is she's standing in solidarity, and then she basically puts up, Vax Democrat for medical freedom. She puts up this huge thing, and she talks about, and I thought this was amazing, right? She goes, I believe nobody should ever be forced to inject their body with anything against their will under the threat of violent attack, arrest, or detention without trial, loss of employment, homelessness, starvation, loss of education, alienation from loved ones, excommunication from society under any threat whatsoever. This is not the way. This is not safe. This is not healthy. This is not love. I understand the world is in fear, but I believe that answering fear with force I don't believe that answering fear with force will fix our problems. I was pro-choice before COVID, and I am still pro-choice today. Anyways, she comes out, and there's other people now, from Hollywood that are kind of just jumping in. And I don't know if it's just the magnitude and the numbers where people are just getting a lot more brave to start speaking out. But something definitely is happening. You can feel it in the air. I don't know about you, Devin, but you've been involved with a ton of protests, a ton of this doing great stuff, especially with all the tyranny that we've seen, not just in Canada, but in the entire world.
Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to get distracted, but one thing I noticed is that when you completely take your window, like your videos,
sure,
that's when the reverb's gone.
Okay, gotcha.
And
so
your audience can, your audience can hear that echoing as well.
Okay.
But when you shut it off, it was completely gone. So
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Weird. Yeah, it's really weird.
Sorry, I don't mean to comment on that. Yeah, basically, I've just been it's been an emotional thing for a lot of people, this event that's happening. People really think it could work or have some kind of desired effect, and it's so effective that our conservative parties, who have been punishing us mercilessly, are actually stepping up and using it as a political agenda to try and make Justin Trudeau look bad. So that's how far it's swung for us politically, that the conservatives are actually willing to use it to further their political agendas again. Like they're siding with the truckers all of a sudden, which is wild because I can't go to a restaurant in my province, right?
Yeah.
And yet Jason Kenney is our premier is actually saying that Justin Trudeau is going too far, but I can't sit in Boston Pizza right now, right? So that's how big this is.
It's wild. Yeah, it's just it's been a crazy run for sure. So I'm definitely encouraged with what I'm seeing. Especially with everything happening, just with this convoy. I heard it is the Guinness Book of World Records. It's the longest convoy. I'm not sure what numbers you've heard, but I've heard about 70 kilometers long it was or something.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like it was funny because I almost stopped thinking about the Ottawa one today, because what I was seeing just in Edmonton was so big. I have never seen a rally that big in Edmonton before. And so I can't even imagine. Like I saw drone photos of Ottawa, and it is mayhem there. They're just out on the street having a good time. This is a festival without paid acts. You know what I mean? There's like, it is people, it's almost just reminding people like, hey, like we used to actually go out and have fun at events, right?
Yeah.
So it is just it's an inspiring thing to watch. Just people say, no, we're done now. I'm ready to go back to normal. And it's a lot. This is not a fringe group. This is massive. And they're sending another wave of trucks from Alberta, they said.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. I really pray that, it remains overall peaceful. There is going to be provocateurs. I don't know if you've already seen, but they've already spotted a few really weird characters. And I'll tell you, looking at it with January 6th, I definitely can spot them. Not just Antifa type. These ones are like, military, police, something like this, but they definitely could cause some instigations. But I know that a lot of truckers, I've been listening on the CBs and on their communications, they've got a whole task force watching, making sure they're already working with the police. So like the truckers are working with the police in many areas to make sure, because they're saying, look, we do not want this to happen. We know we can't control everyone that comes, right? But we are going to be on watch, and we're going to be working with you if we spot anything. So I have a good feeling. Again, it's Canada. This is not the US. So really, and even people that are, have a lot of energy and even they're angry, I don't even think it's going to go that far myself personally, but there might be some people that will try to instigate it. That always happens.
Well, yeah, and the sad part is you don't really need much to make our side look bad and have all the left run with it, right? As we know from the January 6th thing in the US, what happened there was very tame, and that has not stopped the Democrats in the US using it for over a year now. Right, even though it was just a bunch of people milling about and taking photos, right?
Yeah. Well, Elijah Schaefer, he just did. I think he's interviewing someone from Blaze TV, and he gets into calling Canada revolting, but also talking about how it's picking up momentum. I want to play this, and then we'll get right back to it.
The people up in Canada are Canucks, as we call them. Our little boys and girls are moving in the large numbers to protest these COVID measures and to cause their Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign. And of course, we wanted to talk about that with someone who's been covering that very, very intricately and detailed, Marie Oakes, who is a journalist and a reporter. She's, I believe, American, but also was living in Canada, but recently moved back down here. And we're excited to have her on the show to get an update and to find out how, if you're in Canada, you can fight back, or if in any other country, how we can continue to resist this World Economic Forum Great Reset push for a one world government with no privacy where you own nothing. Anyway, I'd like to welcome Marie Oakes to Slightly Offensive.
Thank you for having me on, Elijah. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it really is good to be here. So people get confused. People say that you're a Canadian, but aren't you just an American, but you lived in Canada? What's the story there?
Well, I'm a dual citizen, so I get the best of both worlds, whether it be Joe Biden's America or Justin Trudeau's Canada.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to pick who's better, right? Because you have Biden and you have everything happening in the United States, and then you have Justin Trudeau, who he's sitting down, which is okay, but it's just what he likes to do. And it's like between the two countries, what do you say is the best place to live at the moment?
Definitely the US. I mean, right now I live in a blue state, but in a lot of ways, people just are no longer living totally in fear. Of course, you're going to have a lot of people who are, but generally, if you don't wear a mask, where I live at least in Illinois, people don't care. No one comes up to you screaming like I see those videos coming out of New York or say California. So life is definitely better here than it was when I was living in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which many of your viewers, if they know or do not know, was basically the most locked down area in all of North America and sort of still is.
Yeah, so what's the situation like? I mean, I know it changes from territory to territory, but if we're accounting some of the worst territories to live during this lockdown stuff and maybe some of the better ones, what's life like for Canadians right now?
Well, life is pretty bad across the board, I would say. Almost everywhere in Canada right now, they have vaccine passports. So if you want to go into different establishments, change depending on the province you're in. Say, if you're in Quebec and you're unvaccinated, you, as of this week, are no longer allowed into any retail locations that are larger than 1,500 square meters. And say if you want to go to Walmart or Costco to get your prescriptions filled or go grocery shopping, they are making it so an employee has to come with you to ensure that you're not buying any other items. Say like at Walmart, if you want to buy clothes, you're not allowed to do that. So vaccine passports in Quebec are very widespread, and they're also talking about taxing the unvaccinated so they can use the healthcare system. And in places like Ontario, although it's not as drastic and draconian, they still do have vaccine passports. They've had here and there like stay-at-home orders and those sort of things, and that's kind of how it is all over Canada at this point.
So you're basically like you're othered. You're basically not a citizen. You don't have rights unless you're vaccinated. It's so weird, though. You know, a lot of information is out there about the inability for this current form of vaccine in fighting against Omicron. Of course, they say it still helps, right? But it's not as good as they would like. So they're developing a new vaccine for Omicron. But unfortunately, Omicron season may soon be coming to a close. We have a new variant that they're now monitoring. So it's like they can't even keep up with this stuff. It's like their development and their research is always a step behind. And so it's like, what is the science? What is the research? What is the government telling the people is the justification for taking away their rights and for treating them like second-class citizens for not getting the vaccine?
I mean, right now it's just a blame game. In a place like Quebec, they keep just saying, oh, we have to do this because our hospital system's collapsing and they are overrunning our hospitals. That's why we have to give them a tax. The tax hasn't been completely worked out, but it really seems like it's something they're gonna pursue. They've been very harsh on their rhetoric to the unvaccinated. Now they also are setting up all these outdoor clinics for people to go get vaccinated. They are now investing money into calling campaigns to call the unvaccinated Quebecers, which is only 10% of the population of Quebec. So they have all of these restrictions, and it's about 10% of the population that is unvaccinated. So the messaging isn't making sense. But the thing about Quebec and Canada kind of in a whole is they have a lot of trust in their government. It seems like trust is right now crumbling, but it's still there, and people are largely in favor of these type of restrictions and ostracizing the unvaccinated because in a large part, the population is all unvaccinated. I mean, the population is all vaccinated, so they don't feel these measures personally. And when these measures are not personally affecting them, I just think people don't really understand the severity of the measures and how wrong it really is.
Yeah, it is interesting. In a lot of these crown colonies, like in New Zealand and in Australia, as well as United Kingdom, which we did see just push back a lot of their measures. I mean, what do Canadians think about that? I mean, I know everyone likes to mock America. It's like, well, it's America, it's just America. Like, and they always make up stats about gun violence, not realizing that those stats are actually a lie, and that most of those gun violence are suicides, and that over half of them are suicide, and the other most of them are involving gangs, and this just really has nothing to do with a gun problem. Anyway, they like to talk crap. But then in the UK, our British friends, the Proppers, have decided to roll back the mask mandate and also some of the measures after, of course, the controversies with Boris Johnson and many other people partying during the strictest parts of the lockdown. I mean, do Canadians look to the United Kingdom as a possible solution? Are they completely independent and going to continue more like Australia? What are your predictions?
Well, it's hard to say because there is such a divide in Canada between people who want more measures, if you could even imagine that someone wants more measures than are currently in place, and then the people who are kind of sick of this and actually have to deal with these measures. Because a lot of the people who want these measures and more measures are people who are largely not affected by it. They're government bureaucrats, they're people in the media, they're people with at-home type of jobs. They're not people who have to be a truck driver, have to deal with the border, have to deal with how annoying these restrictions are on a day-to-day basis. They're not in the service industry where they have to wear a mask all day long, or they have to be the ones checking people's vaccine passports. So there is that divide. But like we're seeing with this trucker convoy, which we're going to talk about further in your segment, you're seeing a lot of support of people wanting these sort of mandates and restrictions lifted. You're seeing a lot of children. They're sick of this. They're sick of not being able to do school sports because in a large part of Canada, children are not allowed to do sports right now. And for many of your viewers, I'm sure when you were younger in school, you probably did extracurricular activities, and that's being taken away from all of these kids. And if there's an outbreak in one of their classrooms, their school shuts down. They're back on to at-home learning. And I don't think many kids like this. I had to do the at-home learning for the last semester of my university, and it was the worst experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. We could get into some of those things, but this wasn't meant to be just discouraging to our audience. It's actually interesting with this large protest that we're tracking. A lot of people should be tracking it. If you're not, let more people know about this because people in Canada need to hear about it. The media is doing the best they can to ignore it. I'm sure the mainstream media there doesn't want to give it the credit it is. Anything that helps the people in the country, the media obviously aligned against its people will refuse to cover, and things that will hurt us and degenerate us and ruin us, they will put on blast, like the dangers of the Omicron. Well, I was reading in Fox News that the Freedom Convoy left from Vancouver to Ottawa on Sunday to protest the federal government's vaccine mandates for cross-border truckers, which took effect on January 15th. The Canadian Trucking Alliance estimates that roughly 15% of truckers in the country are not fully vaccinated, or about 16,000 truck drivers. And you see a picture here.
I think that's an important point too, because this isn't just all unvaxxed when it comes to the truckers. Maybe you can comment a little bit about what you're seeing with people standing up for freedom, depending whether they're vaxxed or unvaxxed. I think people are sick and tired of the mandates.
That is the thing. The numbers that we're having, it can't just be a bunch of unvaxxed people. So just by sheer numbers alone, it would be impossible. But also, you look at the trucks that are coming up from the US that are actually crossing through the border. Well, that means that all of those people are vaccinated. So you have an army of vaccinated people that fully support this and think that this whole thing is nuts. And, who knows the reason why, like many people I know were only got their shots because of some level of coercion, right? I almost know anyone. Like, I don't know anyone who was excited about getting their shot. I know there's a couple, but in my personal circle of friends that have been vaccinated, they all have been coerced on some level. Mm-hmm. And so those people, they're mad about this too. They're done too. They we were sold a promise, and that was, they were sold a promise, and that was, you take 2 shots, everything goes back to normal, right? If you remember the Alberta ads, it was the needles with with different scenes playing out in them. And it was like, we can get back to normal when you take the shot, right? So like weddings, birthday parties, soccer games, we're all in these injections. And so that hasn't happened. So you have a lot of vaccinated people that are done now, right?
Yeah.
They're done, and they want to come out and end this too.
Well, I mean, even in Quebec, I mean, there's, announcing plans to impose fines on the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
This is insane. I mean, obviously we know someone, even at church that, his father, is in Quebec, and, it's unbelievable. I think they're at QR, as far as passports. I mean, they're going the entire draconian, tyrannical way. And you're just like, wow. I mean, we can sit there and say, at least we're not in Quebec, we're in Alberta. And I've said this many times on the broadcast, Alberta's kind of like the Texas, of Canada. And it is. And it's unfortunate how bad it got, where they arrested 3 pastors, right?
Yeah.
In this, it's almost like 3 pastors being arrested in Texas. I mean, if that doesn't shock you, it should. Alberta is like the Texas of Canada.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to see the examples they put on pastors here in Alberta, right? But again, this is Canadian wide. People from all over Canada, US now. I mean, there's thousands of truckers now that are coming into Canada, to join. And I heard that there's now a convoy to DC. There's a convoy to, there's Australia. Here, I want to play a real quick thing.
Mhm.
I think this was really amazing. And then it basically just talks about all of the different activity that's going on now with, we're seeing this happen in all these different countries. And you're kind of like, this is exciting to see things starting to move. And we're going to also get into, I think, Ezra from Rebel News. He gave a speech today, and it was quite something. Getting into that, I thought it was pretty remarkable what he had to say, and getting into it. But let's just hear real quick what Trudeau has to say about all this, because Trudeau has a lot to say.
The
Oh my goodness.
small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
Just crazy, him talking and saying it was a fringe minority and all this. And now they're saying, the Ottawa police were telling citizens not to come out to, see the convoy. It was going to be massive. I read the article myself. So now the whole narrative is changing.
Yeah. And so, it's funny because if you listen to what he said there, he actually when he says people who hold unacceptable views, he actually says, or people who hold unacceptable views. Now, what's interesting about that is last week, pastors across Canada preached on biblical marriage, right? And actually, James and Aaron were on a live stream today on Instagram. That's my pastor, for anyone listening. And he thinks that he may have been referring to what happened last weekend there, because he says or. And so he's trying to link everything together possibly, and listen. Yeah, listening to him is difficult. It is tough to get through, but I think we need to.
Well, he's in hiding now. We won't be hearing from him,
which is fantastic. At least any reason to go on vacation, right?
It's unbelievable. But what that message that sends to people is like, well, wait a minute, maybe there's a lot of danger here. I mean, he is now in an undisclosed location. This is serious.
Yeah.
Like, so when I saw that, you can kind of laugh and all the memes came out, but in reality, that's a very dangerous narrative to, be putting out there in the public's view, because they're just like, wait a minute, maybe we're about to have a massive terrorist attack, right? This is no laughing matter, right? So I'm kind of like, in a way I laugh at it, but also I look at like how they're setting this up to make the people, domestic terrorists, kind of the same rhetoric as the US, what they're doing, with anyone that would dare question. I mean, an anti-vaxxer now is not someone that's against vaccines. It's against government mandates. You're now an anti-vaxxer. They changed the definition.
Yeah, totally. That is a really good point, actually. Because here's the thing. We all know that these truckers are coming across Canada to in typical Canadian fashion to realistically just politely ask him to stop, right? We know that.
I know.
But of course the narrative they're putting out, yeah, you're right. That's a really good point, is that they're ushering him away and they're putting him into hiding, and he's fearing for his life. And it's like, yeah, right. No one wants to no one's going to make an attempt on his life. They just want him to stop. right?
No.
That's it.
I mean, it was amazing just to see people driving. The truckers have gone out on the record saying, look, this isn't violent. This is a peaceful protest. We are just doing what we're allowed to do here in Canada, being free, right? Of course, they forgot the free part in Canada, glorious and free, right? We stand on guard for thee. And, they were singing the national anthem today. They were, you could see a lot of this stuff. And this is just day one, right? And again, we talked about it. So, I mean, I want to play this as well, just to kind of give people a perspective.
I never believed that I would concede and let someone trample on me. You strung me along, I thought I was strong, but you were just gaslighting me. I've opened my eyes and counted the lies, and now it is clearer to me. You are just a user and an abuser, living vicariously. I never believed that I would concede and get myself blown asunder. You strung me along, I thought I was strong, but now you have pushed me under. I've opened my eyes and counted the lies, and now it is clearer to me. You are just a user and an abuser, and I refuse to take it. Won't stand down, I'm cold, stronger. Won't stand down, I'm old no longer. Won't stand down, you've with me for too long. Won't
I mean, it's exciting when you start seeing like all of Europe, you got Australia, Brazil, country after country after country. When you start actually looking into this, and we can get into the hashtags that you can use, if you just start hashtagging this and looking in on Twitter, Facebook, all the social media, there's quite a few different hashtags. You can look at Convoy to Ottawa, which is specifically what's happening here in Ottawa, but you can also look into Convoy for Freedom. And also you got Truckers for Freedom, Convoy for Freedom 2022. These are hashtags you can look and you can see for yourself exactly what's going on, what the media is trying to hide. But when I saw it spreading, and it is encouraging, like I said, America, now they're doing Convoy to DC. This is like every state coming together and then all heading towards DC. They will not be able to ignore these numbers. So Devin, do you think that they'll at least maybe compromise, if not just give in, because I think they're definitely going to play hardball here. Do you think maybe some compromises are going to be happening in the near future? Because the truckers have said they're not moving. They're not doing a thing until this is over. The mandates are done. So I'm not sure how long they're going to stand, but what's your thoughts on what's going to happen, how long it's going to go, and what are the results?
Well, I do hope that happens, but one of the things that concerns me is that Canadians we are a gentle people, we are a compliant people, we're an apathetic people, and I'm worried that if the government just gives us some of this stuff back, just enough, that will calm us down enough and make us go back, right? Kind of like how we were open for summer in Alberta, which was very transparent to anyone paying attention. But the point is that politicians know that they can give us some freedom back and then push it back, and give us some freedom back and push them back. And they've overplayed their hand, obviously, on this to a point where you've rallied a huge portion of the country against you. But I am worried that if Justin Trudeau just goes back on this one thing, the trucker mandate, does that just make everything go back to normal? And then we're still in Alberta using the REP program, for example, the vaccine passport for Alberta, right? I am worried that they'll just give us enough to calm us down, but I'm hoping that the truck drivers do what they say and they don't relent until it's all over, right?
What's interesting is there's an interesting phenomenon happening though right now, and I can't quite peg it, but UK, for example, they just dropped everything overnight.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see this happen in other countries where they're not incrementally just starting to slow it down and ease on. They're just like, we're done. No masks, no vaccines, done. And you're like, wait a minute, what is going on? So I've been kind of toying with that, thinking that something strange is going on when you see a country just instantly drop it. And you're seeing this happen in multiple countries. So I'm hopeful in the sense that, maybe the gig is up, maybe, they're going to go for round 2. I look at it like they've got a lot of testing with this one. They've learned a lot about humanity, how far, what can they do, what can't they do. I personally have, said that I'm not sure if this is the one that roll us right, to absolute, concentration camps, right? I think that there's a time in history where we're going to look at this, and hopefully we're going to learn a lot from it to, tell many people about how quickly we can literally become like second-class citizens. I am floored at US, Canada, these Western countries that literally within 2 years, people are calling for them not to have a hospital service. These people don't deserve to have a hospital bed. And you're like, excuse me? What about like overweight people that eat too much? Like, maybe they shouldn't have a hospital bed. Like, it's funny how all of a sudden people are going to dictate who should have healthcare. Sorry, but we live in Canada. Do we not? Does everyone, including people that are doing cocaine? Why do cocaine addicts get to use the hospital, right? If they're just going to wreck their life. So I'm really blown away at how quickly we could move that direction, where all of a sudden there are people saying, I hope they die. They shouldn't have hospital care. And now we should maybe start taxing the unvaccinated. Wasn't that alarming to you to see, the level of, discrimination?
Yeah, I've actually heard it firsthand from people who did regularly attend our church. Say, well, I just don't think that if you want the shot, then you just shouldn't get to go to the hospital. It's like, I pay thousands of dollars in taxes every year for my entire adult life, and you're going to tell me that I can't have health care because I don't want this one thing. And it is alarming. It is amazing how fast it happens, and how unwilling people are who are on that side to see what they're doing and where that leads quickly. They have no concept of a historical like a historical point of reference to look at and be like, doesn't this remind you of something? Taking a group of people and making them an enemy, doesn't that remind you of anything that's happened historically? And one of the things that I've noticed is people are saying, well, it's a similar ideology to what happened in World War II, but it's not the same, because you could change your vaccine status anytime you want, right? So it is a little different, right? And I said, no, the vaccine mandate is to target and isolate people who think a certain way, right? The people that are resisting these mandates follow a type of thought process, and that's who they're isolating and targeting. People that don't want the shot think and act a certain way than people who did want it, and that's who they're targeting. So it's not just about, oh, I can change my vaccine status and then I'm good, because I'll still be opposed to all this awful stuff, and that's who they've managed to isolate with this, if that makes sense.
It does. And when it comes to the definition of a concentration camp, it's literally being taken to a camp without due process. That was happening in Australia, right? People were getting all mad saying, oh, you shouldn't say, that it's concentration camps, but really, in reality, being somebody coming up to your door and saying, you need to come with us, and being taken to a camp that you can't leave without any due process, that is literally the same thing, right? So we're not talking about what the end result was, but we're saying we are in incredibly scary times. And I remember, being a Mr. Tinfoil Hat guy, talking about it. I'm like, well, but that couldn't happen that quick. Not in Canada. It might happen in Germany or some other country, but Canada, no, we're just too nice of people. We would never get to a point where we would get that. Or even Australia. Who would have guessed Australia of all countries? I mean, yo, mate, let's go for a surf, and it's like, these guys are like insane. I think it's really surprised the world, the tyranny level of some countries. But here's the thing, Devin, that's part of the Commonwealth. We're part of the Commonwealth. In New Zealand, Australia, Canada, so you're kind of seeing the similarity with all of these, countries. But what gives me hope is you see UK and other countries where they're like, we're done. We're stopping it all. So I don't know what they're seeing. Maybe they're trying to keep face because they know that the tide is going to turn. And at least they were on the right side by saying, yeah, we stopped it early. I don't know what's going on, Devin, but maybe you can, chime in there and what you think is going on when you see countries that are just dropping it.
Well, when it comes to England, that is exactly what I think is happening, right? Because Boris Johnson he was supposed to be the UK's Donald Trump. He was going to be this conservative. He was going to just be this awesome conservative politician. And I think what's happened is something has shifted in the background that we don't know about, right? That's what it looks like. And it's now become politically advantageous for conservatives to act conservative again. So, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know what the shift is, but all of a sudden, throughout Canada, throughout the UK, all of the conservative politicians have put on their conservative hats overnight, and they're saying this is bad. And so, I mean, I will never trust them. Like, there's always an agenda there, but
Sure.
but something has shifted in the background that we're not privy to.
Correct.
Where all of a sudden the conservatives know now it's politically advantaged to be on the side of the people who are done with mandates. All of a sudden, they know that mandates are opposing mandates is going to be politically advantageous.
Correct.
That's
You're seeing MPs,
right?
you're seeing political figures already banning now with the convoy, right? What Canada started, you're seeing a lot of them. Saskatchewan, I forget the guy's name, but he just wrote a letter saying, let's end this. So you're kind of like, what's going on? Because you've seen this in other provinces. And I know, there's a lot of the audience in Celebrate Truth Radio that aren't just Canadian, from all over the world,
of course,
a lot in the US. And we'll definitely talk about that, guys. But really, it's alarming for us, because we're seeing something that is started from Canada. I mean, that was peace loving. I'm sorry. They apologize. I mean, people joked around. They said, if you want to see someone actually go, towards and make a statement, they're going to take 5 days to get there, and really, they're driving across Canada and they're parking and they're ready to go. And it is waking a lot of people up. I want to go to what happened in Ottawa, just for everyone that's not aware, just to show you the magnitude of this small fringe minority. It is growing. And this was, I think, at around noon. There were tons of convoys still coming. That is gridlocked. I wish I had the image. Maybe I'll try to find it. Ottawa is completely gridlocked. Like, continually, you see it. If you start looking at the map, you'll see exactly how big this is. But this will give you an idea. And this was at noon today. And this was from Rebel News. And he gave a short speech. Check this out.
Justin Trudeau's heart. It's great to be here, and on behalf of Rebel News, I salute you, and I say keep speaking truth to power. But I want to tell you what excites me the most about this crowd. I see a lot of cameras, a lot of independent journalists, because when people say, what do we do about the media? I say you become the media. That's what you do. The media acts like a party, the media party. It's a subsidiary of the Liberal Party. So you've got to tell the story yourselves. Everyone who was here, everyone who was along the road has to bear witness and testify to what they saw. Because there's two competing narratives. The government says you're racist. The government says you're sexist. The government says you're violent. I've never seen a more diverse group of Canadians.
Keep in mind, guys, it's like minus 15 there. I think it was minus 16. So in Fahrenheit, I'm not sure, 20, somewhere in there. Maybe someone can check that on me. But it is going to get very, very cold. And this is the level of dedication. This is cold, guys, to be out there all day in like incredibly severe temperatures. That's what people were blown away when they saw all these like overpasses while the truckers were driving. Every overpass, they said there was just hundreds of people on every overpass standing there waiting for the truckers. And it's cold, guys, cold. And yet this is Canada. So yeah, in ways I'm really proud. I'm shocked, but I'm proud to see this actually take place in Canada.
From violence, people want to not be violated anymore. Justin Trudeau says you're extreme, but he's the one who has violated our civil rights. He says you're a fringe. Well, that's a pretty bloody big fringe. Let me close by saying this. Someone asked me this morning, what's the point? What's going to happen? Why did we all gather in Ottawa? Is he going to listen? Is he going to resign? Is the Governor General going to ask him to step down? No, he'll hold on to power as hard as he can. Let me tell you what I think the point is. The point is the convoy itself. To show that you're not alone. To show that you're not the crazy one, they are. To show that you're not the un-Canadian one, they are. You already achieved your goal just by being here. And the fact that millions of dollars came into the GoFundMe for the truckers, even if they would have canceled that, it was still a success because it was a measurement of how much people cared. You have succeeded just by being here. Keep up the fight. Congratulations to the organizers, but really, it was millions of Canadians along the way in the convoy and watching today from home. Tell them what happened. Tell them what you saw, because they will not hear the truth from anyone else. Keep up the fight, everybody. Keep fighting for freedom. Let's go! Let's go, baby! Let's go! Woo! All right, I'm going to tell a little story.
So they're still flooding in as far as, truckers, people from across Canada. I mean, it is just a mess down there. I mean, the police have, done a good job so far, directing traffic and making sure, everyone is looked after in that regard. But my goodness, have you ever seen anything this big in your lifetime?
No. I've never seen, I mean, I've seen videos of huge protests in other places, and we've had some fairly big protests recently, but there is nothing like this I've seen personally. And obviously I wasn't in Ottawa personally, but even just like I keep going back to the Edmonton one because I've never seen the ledge grounds where the two opposite corners were actually starting to touch each other and were densely packed. It's not just in Ottawa. It's not just in Ottawa. People everywhere. And I'm like, my wife was getting a headache today because the constant stream of honking was endless. The bridges are packed all through Edmonton. Everything is wall to wall with Canadian flags everywhere. And if there's anyone out and about just doing their normal thing today, their life was ruined today. If they didn't want to be in the rally or if they didn't want to be in the convoy, they were in the convoy whether they liked it or not, because it was going in every direction. So I can't even imagine what it's like to have hundreds of thousands of people descend on one city like that and clog the streets. I would love to be there and see it.
Well, I mean, I used to live in Ottawa. I lived there for 6 years, and it's not the easiest place to get around as far as just the roads and stuff. But as far as the aerial footage, I'm going to try to find some, but it's unbelievable. You're talking semis and like trucks and convoys, like through so many streets, right? It's just as far as the eye can see. And it's past the bridge now. They took over the mall downtown, and they're over the bridge, and they're now parking like way outside on the outskirts now of the city. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's cold there, but they're planning to stay there for a while.
So the entire city is plugged, like from end to end, basically.
It is unbelievable. I looked at the gridlock map and it shows you on the map, and it's just incredible. It's incredible how many are there. Now they were saying, and some estimates, and you'll see, you guys can fact check this yourself and find out what the numbers are. But again, most of the numbers that were reported on a lot of the media were around 50. And I'm saying, when I say media, sorry, not corporate media, I'm talking about alternative media, which is really the new news. They're the new journalists. They're the freedom of press. The true press is really the people. And we're seeing that. But I think it's around 50,000 truckers. That was just Canada alone, something like that they were saying. And then as far as millions, they're talking people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if the number is countable. I mean, we had our friends there, Sheldon and Chantel from Medicine Hat. they posted a picture, and they were in a 70-kilometer line of vehicles, right? So I don't even know what that adds up to, and that's
That
not
was the
even
convoy to Ottawa, or that's the one today. Like
no, they were in Ottawa. They were going to Ottawa, so
they went to
were in
Ottawa.
Yeah, they were in a
70
70-kilometer lineup. It was in 2 provinces. It was
which was, I think the media or whatever, they were reporting about 40 miles. So I think that's,
yeah,
that's pretty much, that is
that
huge.
sounds
The
yeah,
world
it's
record, I heard the world record was like 7 or
oh
like 8
yeah,
or something. So
we're
yeah,
dwarfing that. And like I said, they're planning on another wave of truckers leaving Edmonton soon, because what I couldn't fathom is just how many truckers are still here who are driving around with all their support stuff on.
yeah.
There are tons of truckers who didn't go to Ottawa initially, who are now taking the time to get their stuff together so they can go to Ottawa now. So now you're just sending more vehicles and piling it on. Like, if someone has to leave Ottawa, at least there's going to be vehicles to replace them. So it's going to be packed no matter what. Because there's
Funny
people
too, because
just
like
going to be coming.
20 years ago, they would have a dialogue. They start to come up with, some sort of compromise or talk. Now it's just sad in 2022 or even the 2020s. Now you're a terrorist, a domestic terrorism. You got to run into hiding. Everything is all going to turn so bad, right? It's just unfortunate that we live in that world where any type of opposing viewpoint, it has to be censored, or it has to be labeled as crazy, conspiratorial, or, dangerous. And I've been talking about this for years and years on Celebrate Truth, how they would start labeling science deniers dangerous. I've been talking about this for a long time. Understand, guys, there's nothing wrong. Science is good. What we are deniers of is scientism. And we're seeing the same thing happen with scientism when it comes to now what we're seeing with the new agenda. Scientism has always been this deadly force. And I think, what's encouraging for me, Devin, so many people are waking up to the lies of the world, especially when it comes to men in white lab coats and Fauci. You don't argue, you don't come against me because you come against science. If you come against me, talking third party.
Yeah.
He's literally claiming that he's science and that you can't even debate it. Guys, when you can't question science, it's no longer science. Science is always about questions. It always has been. Understand, when they say the science is settled, there's no more debate. We have seen them change so much throughout this entire pandemic. Maybe you can comment on how many times you've seen this happen from the beginning, where it was like, do not wear masks, to wear 3 or 4. That's even better for you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first memes and jokes that started coming out about coronavirus, as we called it back then at the end of 2019, where people were taking pictures or videos of them wiping down their seats in planes and saying, I'm not scared of the Rona. You people are all just nasty, right? And people were actually they felt like they had to justify why they were being overly sanitary. They had to make fun of it. People were joking about COVID, and then and no one's going to get COVID here. No one's going to get coronavirus here. Just don't worry about it. And then obviously it hit here.
Our health minister, Tam, she was saying, like, guys, relax, chill out. It's just like, I'm surprised that she's still
masks. Yeah,
I'm surprised that like someone as a health minister is even still have a job, when you have her on record, and I played it on my show constantly, where she's like, guys, relax, no big deal. Now, guys, for the record, I totally believe that COVID is real. There's so many of these, truthers out there that have gone so far off the deep end that they don't believe it even exists. I've had people I know that have died from it. Again, people have died in the hospital, and people that have done home remedies at home have died. It is something serious. But is it at a level where you shut down society, where you lock down businesses and churches? No, this is government overreach. This is wrong. But it's also equally wrong to sit there and say this is no big deal. There is a big deal to it. But the fact is, you don't all of a sudden take away people's liberties, their rights, their freedoms in order to keep people safe. The government's job is not to keep people safe, it's to basically protect people's rights and freedoms. That's what the government is there for. And I guess the people need to remind them, and it's happening right now in Ottawa, and I guess soon it will be DC and Australia, and the numbers, I believe, are going to grow. This is different because it's truckers. Truckers are what gets all of our stuff into the stores, right? This is significant, because before we can complain, we can have our shows, we can have our protests, but when all of a sudden you start seeing truckers, and I mean hundreds of thousands of them, if not millions worldwide, they're going to take notice. is my view on this, because something has changed now where it's not just people marching. You've got now convoys of truckers, vaccinated and unvaccinated, joining together in unity and saying enough is enough. Maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, well, these are the people that bring you your medical supplies. Think about that. It's everything comes on a truck at some point, right? So if they say enough is enough, that's it. End of discussion. Actually, at the rally today, one of the speakers was saying, like, how about this? If you're an independent trucker, how about you refuse to deliver the goods to this restaurant who is destroying people's rights and freedoms? How about that? And it's, that's where we're at. We're at the point now where you have these owner operator truck drivers who they have all the power. And one of the best analogies I've heard is a truck driver explaining that they're like that quiet older uncle who doesn't say very much. He's just a really serious guy who's quietly operating in the background, but when he decides to speak, everyone listens because they know that what he says is right. And that's kind of like what the truck drivers are showing right now. They've had enough. They've quietly been operating in the background. It's just a crazy thing. The truck drivers run the economy. So
and people are going to say, "Oh, look at them! They're going to blame all the truckers when all of a sudden the shelves are bare." Guys, the shelves are already bare because of these mandates. Guys, we're in a lot of trouble with the supply chains and all of this stuff. The government has created this. The government has started this. So at what point do people actually stand up to the degree that we're seeing enough is enough? So yeah, I'm in total support of people peacefully protesting, standing up and saying this is wrong. It is amazing to see, but don't think for 1 minute that all of a sudden what's happening right now is because all of a sudden the shelves are empty. They're creating this. They're purposely trying to actually hurt the economy. So they come in as the saviors with their vax passports and look at, we eradicated it. Who knows? I do know though, however, in the US, the election, this is a big, big year for the elections. So, a lot of people are speculating that things are just magically going to disappear. Biden finally solved it. He finally, solved, coronavirus. It all went away because they're not looking good. They're talking about a massive red wave for the Senate and the House, and quite honestly, when you start looking at the numbers, Biden is polling horribly. It is an election year, so I'm not going to be surprised if all of a sudden things just all of a sudden start going that direction, because nobody likes to go for a party when all of a sudden they've been trapped. The food shelves are empty. Gas is through the roof. I mean, inflation is out of control, right? This was all started before the truckers even started doing their convoys. It is incredible to see. Support those truckers. There's people that are opening their homes to them. There's restaurants. There's people that are handing out meals. Right now, there is more money that's come in than I believe the Liberal Party. The funding for the Liberal Party was like 7. It's now over 8 million. It was like 6 point something million came in. Individual donations. Right now, I think it's close. If you look at the donations, it's at 8 million almost.
Yeah, and I believe the Liberal Party has raised $3 million since the start of the year.
Okay.
Something like that, right? So you've got a good couple week head start, and that means they're the fringe minority, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are brainwashed into thinking that, we're going to kill everyone and stuff like that. I think it's important that people understand that people need to have the right to choose for them and their family. This is what this debate about. And that's why so many people are starting to join in saying, look, I'm vaccinated. I'm all good, but I do not believe the government should be mandating it on anyone. So like, I am always favored for someone like, the problem sometimes we get on this one side and all of a sudden now we start looking our nose down on these people that got vaccinated. Oh, you dummy idiots, you dum-dums. It's like, you know what? They chose for themselves. Good. As long as they fight to protect my right to choose for myself and not have a government mandate it. We're at medical choices being mandated by governments. It is not a small thing, guys. We're living in tyrannical times. I didn't think that we'd be at such insane levels so quickly. You always talk about the end times and things are going to get worse. And I, as a Christian, I always make the distinction because a lot of Christians, see a lot of sermons and everyone's talking about, the persecution and they're coming against, Christians and stuff. They're coming against Muslims. They're coming against everybody that does not fall in line. This has nothing to do with Christian persecution, but it gives you a very eye-opening experience on how quickly the world could turn against Christians.
Absolutely.
You might have thought it took 10 years before, but it could literally happen in 6 months, where all of a sudden they want you to die and they don't want you to have a hospital bed. This is scary stuff. So hopefully this wakes people up to understand that, hey, it's all fine and dandy, if you're for the mandates, but what happens if all of a sudden they start mandating something 5 years from now you don't like? Keep in mind, it's a double-edged sword, guys. You might be on that side where you think, hey, we're fighting for good. The mandates are awesome. I'm all for it. But understand, tyrannical governments usually flip the script, and pretty soon they're going to be mandating stuff on you and your family that you don't like at all. So keep in mind that everyone loses when governments go tyrannical.
Yeah, well, there's that really famous saying, and I believe he was a Lutheran minister during World War II, and I don't remember the line, right? But he goes through the list. First they came for the Bolsheviks, and I didn't say anything, right? And it goes through the list. The Jews, all this, and then they came for me, and there was no one there to talk for me, right? Basically, if you don't defend the rights of people you disagree with right now, there will be no one left to defend you in a couple of years. That's what it comes down to. We have to have a society where sorry, I just got a weird text. We have to live in a society where we exist with people that we disagree with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, we have to always keep love at the forefront, right? And love our fellow man, love our neighbor. That is so incredibly important. We can get heated, but we have to understand that is really, truly the most important. I mean, God always looks at it and says, they will know you by your love. So no matter what you're doing, man, show them love, man. Love overpowers anything else, hate, division. And the governments right now, unfortunately, are getting to the point where they love, and they've been doing this for a long time, divide and conquer, but don't let them, right? Talk to people that even that are vaccinated or for that, and just have that discussion and have those dialogues, but do it in love, because it is important. Yeah. More people are waking up, Devin. They really are. And I'm seeing this, people will be discouraged and see a lot of people are just asleep and they're sheep and all this, but you've got a lot of people that have basically said, no more corporate news. I already know the lies. CNN's ratings are going down right into the gutter. Guys, there are good stuff happening, even though it is tyrannical and we're seeing some crazy levels. There is a ton of people that are starting to wake up, starting to question, starting to evaluate their life. So I think there's a whole paradigm shift that we're actually seeing, we're witnessing, we're living through a time where we're seeing, events unfold that we've never seen before. I mean, quite honestly, some days I'm shocked. I'm like, is this the real world? We could do a whole show on some other topic about how crazy this world is getting. I saw a thing, Apple emojis, they're going to be releasing, girl and also boy pregnant emojis. And you're kind of like, are we really living in a world where they're going to have like men pregnant emojis? And you're kind of like, yep, I guess we are, right? It's unbelievable how not just evil. I always say this, it's not just evil. We're getting so completely off the rails evil. Like, it's not just evil. We understand evil, murder, but when we get into like loony bin stuff, where people are saying, today I feel like a horse. I'm a horse. And you're like, yes, you're a horse. You believe what you want to believe, and it's true for you. Really? So you mean I'm a horse? If you believe it, you are. Okay, I'm going to believe it, then I am. And you're kind of like, the government is all applauding. We're having parades for it, and we're saying, congratulations. Meanwhile, the degradation, demoralization that's happening in society is unbelievable. So when this happens, I think people start getting hope. And guys, regardless of the outcome of this, when it comes down to, even if it comes down to the rules or the mandates, this is good and healthy for countries to see people coming together. People need it. It's almost like this, like you said, today you probably looked around and it was like people needed that. They needed that breath of fresh air, talking to one another, all different races, nationalities. It's just amazing to see this. Yet they want to paint us as this radical, all these things, and it's not true. So hopefully more people wake up to seeing, shows like this and seeing the reality that these people are just sitting there saying, look, man, we live in Canada. We have rights to speak out. This is truly what we have the right to do, and we're going to do it and fight for it.
Yeah. I mean, today, I met a 6-year-old, and he was holding his sign that his mama helped him make, obviously. And what it said was, I have never been to school without a mask, because he's 6. right? So when he started
Wow.
school, they had masks, and I hadn't even thought about that. There are kids that have spent 2 years of school. They've never been to school. They've
Man.
never been to school without a mask, and him being able to see all these people meeting together, smiling, having a good time, and nothing bad is happening because we're not, even though we're not wearing masks, right?
Mhm.
It was a really good experience, and I'm glad that people are bringing their children to this stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, like the untold damage as far as depression, suicides, the untold truths are actually going to be, coming out very, very soon if they're not already. And the question is, when it's all said and done, what side of history are you going to be on? I think people are going to look back at this time and just shake their head and say, "What happened? Like, what happened? How could even people allow, that level of tyranny and just locking people down?" I mean, we can attest to what happened with Grace Life Church. I mean, not just only did he, get Pastor James Coates get thrown into prison, but then, afterwards, all of a sudden they're locking down the church. They're triple fencing a church in Alberta, Canada, so that people can't get in. And what the ironic thing is, all these people were there protesting. Nobody from Grace Life was even there. They went underground. They're worshiping, which was hilarious to me because you'd see all these crowds of people outside that fence. And you kind of look, I mean, other than yourself, documenting, really the main congregation had just literally, stayed away from there, And even when, there was a couple agitators that started ripping down the fence, they started putting it back up, but the media showed the ripping of the fence down. But also, if you started looking around and looking at the truth, you also saw shortly afterwards tons of people helping the police put it back up, right? Because again, there comes a time when there's something that is illegal and you're breaking the law, but there's a time when you can basically speak out, protest, and that's what a lot of people did, right? So it was crazy to see that, like in our city, Edmonton, right? How is it that, the first pastor in the Western world to go to jail for opening up his church? To me, it was blown away. I couldn't even believe it. I told James that one time. I just said, like, I'm just, it's surreal sometimes to think that, like, for whatever reason, God had chosen you to be that person that literally would be that name that was the first one to basically say, no, I am not going to, close down my church. And I'm not saying he was the only pastor, but for whatever reason, God chose him to highlight, him and Grace Life Church. And I mean, you've been part of the roller coaster. I've talked to many people there, and it's just, it's insane. And, most people don't believe that it's ending anytime soon, but I have this weird feeling with 2022. I don't know if it's just that something is going to change, so I don't know. Where do you stand with this? Would you, if you were going to say, you think that things are going to lighten up and most things are going to go away by the end of 2022, 2023? Or do you think that we're into this more tyrannical, more craziness till 2025? What would you say?
I don't know. Again, I'm getting an echo, but it's okay.
Okay, sorry. I guess it's this page. Anytime you put
yeah. Oh, there.
this
Yeah.
page.
No, that fixed it. Okay.
Weird.
So, sorry. What was your last question? I got distracted.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why that page for some reason is. No, I was just talking about just the, with James and just with, I said, if you, were looking at it, what would your opinion be based on? Do you have a feeling? And again, it's just your feeling, Devin's feeling, that things are going to fairly lighten up over the next year and a half, or they're about to get more insane than we've ever seen over the next year and a half?
Up until this event that's been happening over the last week, I just figured it would just carry on being pretty strict and, waning and moving around, but basically staying in that same level of, basically just being punished for not being vaccinated. I thought it was basically just going to hover there. But now, because of this shift that I'm talking about, that we're all seeing because of this, it's going to be politically advantageous for conservative leaders to lighten up. And so I think we're probably going to get a break until the conservatives in Alberta, for example, lose an election. I do think it's going to lighten up. I'm hopefully optimistic. I don't believe anything Jason Kenney says, but he has talked about how, well, the REP is just going to be around until March, and I have no reason to believe him other than now it is politically advantageous for him to open up so that he can have people celebrating in the streets, packing restaurants, and Alberta looking like it's free and clear until the next election cycle, right? And then now that they know that they can lock down people for ridiculous reasons, they could bring in lockdowns in a year or two for anything they want, right? They could have climate change lockdowns, right?
Sure.
You have a doctor diagnosing people with climate change, right? You can do anything, right?
Yeah. That's true.
If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, no, I've worried also
think it's
about
gonna
climate
lighten up.
change. I think that, their agenda when it comes to climate change is going to be just as crazy, if not more in different ways, but they're going to claim all sorts of stuff, as far as we got to save the planet and, climate change. And so, climate change, I mean, as far as the level of insanity is on the back burner right now, but I think it's coming out full force. If you start looking at the documentation and seeing exactly where they're going with climate change, you're kind of like, okay, guys, we might get a little break from the whole coronavirus thing, might tone down a bit. You're like, whew. And then all of a sudden the madness of climate change is going to hit us hard. And it's going to be the most outlandish stuff where you're like, wait a minute. So I can't drive on Tuesdays and Thursdays to save the environment. Oh, and I, have to pay taxes. And it's just, they're going to go crazy. They're already starting to demand certain businesses, that fall in line, and you're kind of like, oh my goodness. The reality is this, guys, if everyone had electronic vehicles or battery powered vehicles, the grid can't even support it. We'd have like blackouts everywhere. Like we're not even anywhere close. This whole idea that, they want to get rid of all combustional engines. And you're kind of like, guys, it's so ridiculous. I mean, the battery uses more coal than even, it's when you start looking into it, you're kind of like, how is it that no one can see this when they start looking at the facts and going, look, there's nothing wrong with wanting to keep your world clean and all of this, being good stewards of the earth, no problem. But when you see a complete crazy money grab, and when you see the whole world being preached to by a child, Greta, whatever her name is, you're kind of like, guys, what level have we entered in when children are reprimanding us? Children. You're like, I look throughout history. When do you see children becoming spokespersons for things? But we're here where children are literally reprimanding us for not taking care of the earth. And you're kind of like, is this for real? Are we living in the Twilight Zone? But it's crazy times. But I think people are getting tired. All this to say, Devin, that I think people are at the point, and the governments almost kind of know this. They're kind of at that breaking point. And maybe this whole convoy thing is like, oops, maybe maybe this has sparked it where we're like, oh, maybe we went a little too long, because I think the cat's out of the bag now. Pandora's box, it's been open. I really hope that it really sends a powerful, strong, truthful message to the world, and that it's done, right. And that if there is any, provocateurs or whatever, that they're completely spotlighted, singled out fast. And, we can hope for that. But at the end of the day, I think the truth will reign.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously God is in control of what is happening. And so like that has gotten me through the last 2 years. Right. But what I'm seeing is, just finally, it looks like there's at least a break in sight, a real uncontrolled break that the politicians have to cave to somewhat. They have to acknowledge it. And that's what I'm excited about, is forcing them to acknowledge that this is real, and that the truck drivers can cause a lot of problems for them politically, right?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah,
I think the
it's
numbers are there.
exciting.
You can't really ignore when you've got I don't know, tens of thousands of trucks in your city, in your capital, right? And then if it happens in DC, and it happens, in the capital of Australia, and it happens in Brussels for Europe, when you start seeing that happen,
and
yeah, because we've seen protests. Like I agree with you. We'd be looking at the news and be like, hey, how come Canada's not like Germany? Or, you saw these countries that you saw huge amounts of people, right? Like Belgium and and you're kind of like, look at that, man. There's like hundreds of thousands of people there. And you're just looking at these crowds. You're like, where are the people in Canada? Where are the people in America? Say, where are the patriots? I've been really surprised, to tell you the truth, thus far, that there really hasn't been the numbers. I'm like, what are they waiting for? How crazy does it have to get before you're like, enough is enough? But we're seeing it finally, which is good. But I think people are at the point where they're tired. Even people that like 100% vaccinated, buy into the whole propaganda or whatever. They're like, I'm tired. I'm done. And I don't know if I
Yeah.
even want another booster. I honestly don't. I don't care anymore. Right. So,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. I mean, we're not even going to get into that, obviously, YouTube and all the rules, right? But
Yeah.
really, the reality is do your own research, guys. Look into it. We're not medical experts or anything like this, but you guys can all look and you can find out what's right for you and fight for that. That's the big thing. The Nuremberg trials were all about that. And it's like, this is really important when it comes to your medical sovereignty, when it comes to, what you put into your own body. It's really important that governments don't get the power, and people are going to continually speak up. We're seeing that, and hopefully we're at the tail end of this. And if we are, I'm telling you, man, I think people have to have like tons of studies. They have to have a lot of seminars and letting people know for next time, because there'll be a next time. They've got to prepare people now for that next one that comes, that they won't go that far. Because this one it got ridiculously far. Maybe we were complacent. And in ways, I believe that God is shaking up the world and he's saying, hey, like, are you going to be complacent? Are you going to stand for anything? And this goes in many areas, but I always looked at what's been going on as a real shaking. I mean, the church has been shaken. They have to address, like you talked about, a couple of weeks ago, where all of a sudden now in Canada, it was illegal, C4 to, anything to do with, what was it, transformation or conversion therapy, and then John MacArthur got on board and said, look, we're not going to be silenced. We're going to talk about, you need to convert or you need to repent in order to come into the kingdom of God, right? Regardless, whether you're an adulterer, a fornicator, or you're gay or lesbian, this is what the Bible teaches. We're not going to stop talking about that. So it was good to see the solidarity with all these churches. I think in total, there was like 5,000 churches or something.
Oh yeah,
that was
I didn't know the numbers.
It was about 5,000. I think that's what I read on MacArthur's site. And I was like,
awesome.
And this is the point, though. You're seeing a lot more solidarity. Before, it was hard picked to find a bunch of churches that would literally say no to the mandates. You could count them on your hand in your city.
Yeah.
But it seems now that certain things are coming out. Churches are like, no, that's enough, right? So you are seeing like this waking up kind of taking place. And the one thing I love, Devin, is the whole thing that people are questioning science. Now, for many reasons, but I love the fact that people are going, maybe I want to look into the facts. I want to become, empirical scientist. I want to look into the data. So for me, I'm encouraged by that, because it is important for people to understand the difference between science and scientism. And we're seeing it firsthand. We're seeing a deadly agenda. We're seeing a tyranny and almost, a dictatorship of scientific medical terms, right? But again, keep in mind that the world we live in, Devin, the most powerful people is not the military, it's not the government, it's the scientists. The ones with the white lab coats that say, no. We advise the businesses be shut down. And they're like, okay, go enforce it. So like, that's the thing that's crazy, man. And I've been talking about this, and I'll tell you the truth, I never, ever would ever have expected the level of tyranny from the scientists to go to that level. But here we are. They could shut down businesses, churches, lock you in your homes, tell you that you can't see your family. And it was all coming from like, medical. It was all coming from scientifical. It was, these are the people that don't trust the science. That's what they say. Anytime you disagree or you want to debate, what happened to just having discourse and debate? That's even forbidden. On YouTube, we can't even talk about certain topics. We live in crazy times of censorship. Censorship never goes well when you oppose and you censor the opposition. And we're seeing communist, Marxist ideologies completely go through, not just Canada, many countries of the world. It's scary. It's scary. It needs to be stopped. For me, 10 years ago, if you said, are communists bad? You'd be like, yes. And now everyone's like, it's cool to be communist and Marxist, BLM. They're like, we're Marxist.
Exactly.
And you're like, 20 years ago, it was like, weren't we, 40 years ago, you were fighting the commies,
Well, even 5 to 10 years ago, you had to be like, oh, well, socialism's different than communism because you vote with socialism. And, people would sugarcoat it and try and find the difference. And it's funny because I remember when I was in grade 2, we learned that socialism was a necessary thing to get to communism. That's how it was taught to me. I'm 33, and I'm sure as you go back, it was even more clear. But there is a line where people in their late 20s started getting taught that communism and socialism were not the same thing, right? I must have been at the tail end of that. And so, it's now just, you're allowed to say, I'm a Marxist. I'm the people just rock hammer and sickle shirts like it's cool. Right? So that's where we're at.
Crazy. It's crazy. The world has changed a lot in 2 years. an incredible lot. Everyone time, and when I run into someone, I'm like, the world sure changed in the last couple of years, and everyone's like, oh yeah, like it's unbelievable, and I have, some really young children, and it's like it's the only world they're ever going to know, and you're kind of like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. This whole masking kids for 8 hours a day at school and just all this stuff going on, and you're like, let's see when the true science comes out, and that's the whole fact is having those questions, looking into it. And it's alarming when you start looking into it and you kind of become that investigator and you're like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to know the truth on this. Let's see the actual science. And
Yeah.
for a while on YouTube, you couldn't even talk about the origins of the virus. Now it's okay to do, right? They just keep
Yeah.
flip-flopping and changing. So, last year was wrong and you get banned. Now, yep, you can totally talk about it. The fact of the matter is, though, anytime you monkey with genetics, viruses, transhumanism, trying to monkey with, God's design, God's creation, it ain't going to end up good. That's what I'll
Yeah.
leave it at. All right. It's not going to end up
Exactly.
good. I say stay away from that stuff. And when you know that stuff's happening, it ain't going to be good because you shouldn't be messing with stuff. And especially if you're tinkering with like, hey, let's see if we can mix up bats and this and see if it can make it super contagious with humans. Ain't going to be good.
Yeah,
Not good,
exactly.
So I say stop monkeying around with God's creation and his created order. That's another big deal. Notice that like God's order, his creation, everything is under attack right now. And especially when it comes to the created order, male and female, husband and wife, all this stuff is just getting obliviated. Kids are growing up learning from TV, that's just warped reality, not close at all to what the word of God states, right? So, as a
Yeah.
Christian, we have to be really, diligent when it comes to saying, look, man, this is what the Bible teaches. But keep in mind, it teaches it in love. You should never hate, regardless what someone does or what their opinion or what their view is. Don't hate them. But look, you don't have to dislike what they're doing.
Yeah. Like when you talk about that, it reminds me of some of these extreme churches that we would lump in with us. But they would literally yell at people if they wore masks into their church, right? Take the face diaper off. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I don't want to see people wearing masks because of what it symbolizes and what it, and that they're useless, right? It bothers me, but
if they feel safe, if they feel
that
good,
person,
yeah.
exactly, that person is walking into your church, and that means that they probably support you and agree with you on almost anything. And so don't give them a hard time, right? Every now and then you still see people with masks showing up at our church, and no one walks up to them and gives them a hard time because we're just happy they're there hearing the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what that reminds me of. Do it in love. And hopefully you can make that person feel comfortable enough that they realize they can just take the mask off themselves, right?
Sure. People need to feel like,
Yeah.
loved and embraced that way, especially when it comes to church, right? A lot of people were spiritually damaged, forget physically and
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally. Spiritually, that's one thing, when they're talking about like, oh, what's essential, what's healthy. Keep in mind that spiritual health was completely diminished when it came to any type of mandates and stuff. Again, the church
Mhm.
and spiritual health is incredibly important, and people were coming out, because they really, really wanted that. So yeah, to make anyone, I mean, unless it's an actual rule of your church, it's one thing. But if it's not, why would you do that? It's almost like saying if you don't believe that in evolution, right? You believe God was literal creation in 6 literal days. Why would you start hammering on someone because they do, right? You come in, have this dialogue and talk to them, but you're not going to just, I say this all the time on my show. I say, get it. Look at the essentials. What is the most important? Forget all the secondary garbage. Who cares about the secondary garbage, especially in the times we live in? And you're going to start like, having this huge fight with your brother about, a certain issue. I'm always big on if it's essential. Okay. You might have your issues with your brother, but understand it's so important when it comes to the family of God. We need each other more than ever. We are going into very, very dark times if we're not already. And this has nothing to do with Christian persecution. This just has to do with dark days in the world. And you need your family. You also need your spiritual family. So keep in mind that don't get nitpicky like brothers and sisters all fighting about, just nonsense. Keep perspective. I get this all the time, Devin, because again, a lot of people that, tuned into me, they'd be like, look, if someone doesn't believe this or believe the Bible says this 100%. And I'm like, is it salvational? Well, no, but it's important. I'm like, then don't start lording it over people and don't start thinking that you're higher up and that you're holier than thou, that you are the only one that can read it correctly. Because I can assure you in 10 years time, you're going to change a lot of viewpoints on what you believe right now. I used to be pre-trib. I'm not pre-trib anymore. But at the end of the day, even if you're talking to someone that is pre-trib, I'm not going to fight them and call them a heretic. And this is secondary doctrine. We don't actually have to get so insane about it. When it comes down to this vaccinated, unvaccinated, the same thing, guys. Don't start hammering people that are, because here's the thing. If they're vaccinated, there's no undoing that. It's done. How is it helping? How is it going to help? I mean, you can maybe start talking to them, saying, hey, here's some literature about children, because that's the next big push they were trying. Hopefully that gets pushed back. But I say, forget talking to people about that. It's almost not too late. But it's like, how would you feel if you were talking, all of a sudden you're like, oh, but I already got it. Like, I can't reverse that.
There's no point in ruining someone's day, right? Like,
no, I would talk about ruining a day. I can change. Yeah, I can change, like, as a Christian, if you're saying, hey, dude, you need to repent, you need to change that activity.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody has the choice to change at some point in the future. It's not like someone can just miraculously be unvaccinated again.
Yeah, they can't get rid of they can't get rid of it. It's funny because at my work, I had several unvaccinated people around me until the very end. And then it got down to me and one other guy, but we would talk openly about it. And I'd have to catch myself often with one of the guys who agreed with me, because I would start kind of talking about what I think is going to happen to vaccinated people. And then I'd be like, oh, sorry, man. Right. Because I realized I was stressing him out. Right. And I'd have to stop, because I don't want to, there's no point causing undue stress. Right.
Well, especially when it comes to that. I mean, it's a serious deal when you start telling people. And I mean, I had people even around me that were saying, in my opinion, crazy things, because I'm like, well, within a year, we're going to know if you're right or wrong. And I'm like, that is a crazy statement to say that, like, pretty much 100% of anyone that basically had this vaccine would not end well. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a dangerous thing to say. If you're 100% on something, it's going to take a year to either prove you wrong. I just say, be careful when you say something, or just say, hey, look, I just think this, or it's my opinion, but don't start saying 100%.
Yeah. I've probably been too intense about that in the past, honestly. And it's just what it is. Yeah. Like, I am very worried about the long-term effects for these people. I am, but like you say, there is no point in freaking them out, because it's been done now. If they have it, they have it. And so we can just hope that they are not. We can hope that it's not going to be. I always say that I hope I'm wrong about what I think is going to happen. Right? I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I don't want it to be as bad as I think it is. And I probably don't think it's as 100. I don't think it's 100% or anything, right?
Yeah. Obviously. Well, that's the thing. I think it's important just to, moderate those, expectations, but also when it comes to, predictions and stuff like that, it's for everyone, be careful. But I could get like that too, where you get kind of on a rant and you're saying it, but you're like, wait a minute, the audience is here. Is everyone on the same page? Right? Like, you might be saying something that someone goes away and they're like, I'm like, they start researching it and they're like, I mean, I can't imagine what someone would feel like if they came to the understanding that, it's not going to end up well for them. Right. I do know, though, however, there has been like a lot of people, no problems whatsoever. We always know there's vaccine injuries. There's always risks to life. There's things that will happen. We're not going to get into that debate or that discussion. All I can say is, at the end of the day, research it, make the choice for you, and stand on, principle when it comes to, fighting against anyone that would say, you need to be mandated. The government needs to mandate for you and your family. Just fight for that. Stand. It's almost like free speech. It's like, even if I totally disagree and I can't stand what someone's saying, I'm going to fight for the right to say it.
Yeah.
Like, they have the right to say it, even though it upsets me, they have the right to say it. Where, this whole idea that, oh, what you said, Devin, offended me. Oh, well, we live in a world where people are going to be offended, but it's a very sensitive world now, where everyone's just like, we got to cancel you. We got to shut you down because you said something that canceled you. It's crazy times right now, because you can't even have these reasonable discussions with people.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the mandating thing, I think the best way to put it is this: it doesn't matter if it's harmful, it doesn't matter if it's 100% safe and effective, it doesn't matter if it would stop the virus dead in its tracks. It would still be wrong for the government to mandate it. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. That's it. And obviously, we think it's not as good as they're saying, but the point is it could be the perfect drug, and it still shouldn't be mandated, because you're putting it in your body. That's it.
100%. I mean, that's a great way to close out the show tonight. Really appreciate you, coming on as a guest. Sorry about all the, technical issues. It's the first time anything like that's happened where it's just
It's
nonstop. I want to try one thing real quick. I'm curious on this.
Okay,
I'm
for
gonna
sure.
Put this up. I'm going to put this up and just tell me if you get the
Mm.
echo again, because I tried something different on this, and just tell me if you get the same echo.
Okay, so on this one, I think we're good. No echo.
All right. So that's interesting.
So-
I'm going to look into it because, yeah, it's the same thing I did, but I shut this down. It's just a sharing feature for this, but no echo, right?
Interesting. No echo at all.
Weird. Weird. Okay. Well, at least I know exactly
Yeah.
what was probably causing that part of it. But again, I've done shows before where it was like no problem. And then tonight it was just nonstop. And I'm like, oh, maybe you
Yeah.
got to shut down your computer. And it was my thing the whole time. And even
Yeah,
there's a
maybe,
problem with
yeah.
the studio with Revolution Radio as well tonight, too. So
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
been compounding a bunch of stuff, you know, that's been going on. But anyways, yeah, kind of throws you off a little bit when you're kind of like echoing and all this stuff is happening. But
Yeah,
I
for
appreciate
sure.
your patience. We'll definitely
Oh,
have you
yeah,
on.
no problem.
We'll have you on again at some point when there's like no technical issues and we can just have a good chat. Cause I like to go in kind of everything you're covering and your channel and just have you on as a guest where it's not like so topical. It's just overall who's Devin
Okay.
Davis, you know, and all that. Cause I do that with guests where I want to really get to know them and what they're about and just, yeah, your ministry and where your heart's at and all that. So, but I
Yeah, for
definitely
sure,
thought
man.
you being out today in Edmonton and just being as active, you know, the activism that you have been part of in the last, I don't know what year and a half now. It's been quite some time.
Basically since the end of March 2021 is when it really started. That's really when it all just changed for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been, how's it been jumping on to the social media, YouTube, doing videos,
Well,
podcasts?
I mean, it's really fun. Like you can see, like every time, like every couple months, my quality gets better. You can see the lighting in here is crazy now. So I finally stepped up with my lighting, and it's just crazy how you know, you go, okay, well, how do I do this? Well, then I should probably live stream. Well, I need to figure out how to live stream to multiple channels and going through all these systems and building a Facebook page and trying to also fly under the negative algorithms. You know what I mean? Like doing what you can to stay building an actual Facebook profile, right? And I do.
You can't
really
find
good-
half my videos. I'm shadow
Yeah.
banned. I am like,
Yeah.
like if you try to search like some videos, they don't even appear, right? I've been shadow banned, just unbelievable, like censorship. Again, still being able to do, you know, the shows, but as far as a
Yeah.
lot of my catalog, it is just completely like censored.
Yeah, it totally. Sometimes there's just things that the algorithms can't stop because everybody just
Yeah.
shares it,
Yeah.
right? I've had a couple posts that have just gone insane for
Yeah.
views, and but it's rare, and it gets more rare all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My first couple videos were like 30,000 views, no problem. It just they
Yeah.
just took off, and then all of a sudden it just clamped down to like
Yeah.
1,000 views, right? And you're like,
They just throttle it. They throttle it on you
it's
and
like,
everything.
huh,
But yeah.
that's weird. Yeah.
Well, welcome to censorship. Welcome to
Yeah,
YouTube
exactly.
and
Yeah, no, it's
social
fun.
media. Yeah,
You
well,
know?
I mean, and you keep you know, going and speaking, and I always sit there and say,
Yeah.
whatever the rules are, as frustrating and upsetting they can be, it's still their platform. It's still theirs. So it's like
Unfortunately,
respect
yeah.
it, or you're gone. And if you have a chance to minister, it's usually wiser, unless you feel called 100% to speak on a topic that is forbidden, then you got to find another channel and do that. But if you're
Yeah.
kind of all rounded, you want to talk about lots of stuff, just know kind of the areas you can't talk about. And, you know, there's plenty of people that are trying to do that. But I say, especially when you build up a presence, it's unwise to just try to fight YouTube. You're going to lose. You will
Yeah.
lose.
Yeah, and
You'll lose.
They'll just bury you in copyright strikes, or
Community guidelines. The
community guidelines
copyright.
strikes, that's
The
what-
copyright
Yeah,
strikes are, yeah.
Yeah, I have a warning on my page that I never got overturned, so it's just sitting.
You
there.
always get a warning. Yeah, once you
Yeah.
get that warning, it stays there
Yeah.
forever.
Exactly.
So then now the next warning will be a be a strike.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
exactly.
your strikes will expire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll get like a 6-month kind of thing or a 3-month,
Oh,
depending
okay.
on how big your channel is. But
So the
you will get
warning's
an
permanent. Okay.
correct. So what you have to
That's
do
good.
is when you get up to like 1 or 2, maybe just ease back a little bit, chill out,
Yeah.
and wait till they expire. I do that.
Yeah. So here's what I've done is what got hit for me was I isolated part of my live stream talking about a specific topic, and then that being condensed into like a 15-minute video just made it a target, I think. And so what I do now is when I isolate those short videos, I put them on Rumble instead.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I just share the link to Rumble from
Yeah.
everything instead. And that
It's frustrating having so
yeah.
many different platforms. It's just
you got to run the scam, man. That's what it is, right? You just got to run it.
You do. You got to kind of play with the rules or go through all these different jumping through hoops and mental gymnastics to get through all these things. I mean, there's tons of stuff that we could have talked about tonight, but we can't, because, you say certain things and that's it. You're done. You're gone. And we've seen this happen. I mean, speaking of censorship, boy, are they coming after Joe Rogan. They are not happy.
Oh, yeah,
they're coming at
trying to
him
get him.
scientifically. They're trying to come after him through, these artists are saying, I want my music off Spotify. And they're like, bye. I love it so far.
That was
Bye.
beautiful with Neil Young. Yeah, they were like, oh, no need to do that. We'll just take you down. It's fine.
Well, they added a new one. There's a Canadian right here. Joni, I can actually do this now. Wow, no echo. Let me see. Canadian singer Joni Mitchell removes music from Spotify.
Okay.
So now it's amping up, and like Spotify is like, bye. So far it's just completely some funny, old timers.
Like these people don't realize that Spotify has a contractual obligation to Joe Rogan. They can't just get rid of him, and they don't want to because he literally is one of the only things making anybody money right now. Like he's making Spotify all their money.
Well, they did. I think it was $100 million over 5 years.
Yeah.
So think about this: that they must be making at least $1 billion to pay him $100 million, right? 10%. Yeah. So like they're making an enormous amount of money off Joe Rogan. And quite honestly, I've never been more proud of seeing, the guests that he's coming on. I wasn't a huge fan of Joe Rogan, but as I watched more and just seen that balance, I don't agree with everything Joe Rogan says at all.
Of course not.
But he does have people on from all different viewpoints, right? I mean, Peter McCullough was phenomenal. Dr. Robert Malone.
I haven't watched that one yet, but yeah, I need to. Those are the only ones I'll watch because
so good.
Joe Rogan is on his best behavior when he's got high-end doctors like that on too. Yep. So he's really enjoyable to listen to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's been good, but it's funny, like, in our day and age, Joe Rogan's really the one with the big spotlight of truth. I mean, as weird as it sounds, he's literally like, when this all passes, you look back and say, who was the one person that they were coming at and they just couldn't do anything? And you're looking at it, it's Joe Rogan of all people.
Yeah.
He's doing more numbers. I think it's 11 times more than CNN, but even the highest syndicated show on Fox, he is just dwarfed compared to what he's doing. On his big shows, he's doing 40 million. On his small shows, he's doing something like 11 million. Well, Fox is doing like 3 or 4 million, for Tucker Carlson. I think Tucker Carlson's like number 2.
Exactly. Or has fluctuated with number 1. Yeah. I would compare him to Tucker Carlson. He dwarfs Tucker Carlson on a bad day, right?
I know. So it's weird to think that like the new mainstream media are podcasts. It's Joe Rogan, right? So the corporate media is dying. You were seeing this happen with like even in Canada here, CBC and like Global, and their numbers are just dwindling, right? While like podcasts and people speaking. So there is a paradigm shift taking place with the new generation that's coming up. They're scared, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop it because it's like a runaway train.
People want long form conversations now.
They do.
They just want to have people on who know what they're talking about and listen to them interact with each other. That's it.
Strange.
That's what we want. Yeah.
Who would ever thought just a 3-hour and his shows are like 3 hours and just chatting.
Or like a 4-hour video with Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo, right?
Well, there was I don't know if you ever watched Tim Pool. I've really been enjoying his stuff. Timcast IRL is on YouTube, is his channel, but he had a mega show where he had Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, he had Michael Malice, he had Luke Radowski, he had it was just this mega show of all these guys at once. It was phenomenal. But again, they were talking about all the stuff going on in the world. And that's what I like is like, regardless where you stand on someone, you're kind of like, where are they at when it comes to government tyranny? And you're like, for me, it really simplifies things going, I'm going to stand for that. I'm going to stand for you right now. I might not agree with a lot of stuff you have to say, but it doesn't matter. We're fighting for our human rights and freedoms. Like I care about your secondary issues right now. I will put those down on the back burner and I will at least say, I have a platform to hear Robert Malone. I have a platform to hear Peter McCullough, and many millions of other people do as well.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Exactly.
That's cool. Sure. Awesome, man. Well, like I said, we will get you on again here in the future. Apologize for all of the technical issues. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Celebrate Truth Radio. I will be putting on the 24/7 live stream, probably about 5 to 10 minutes after the show ends. So if you haven't, go to YouTube youtube.com/celebrate truth. There's a 24/7 stream going on all the time, other than when my radio show's on. I turn it off for that, but you'll love it. There's some great moderators. Appreciate all you guys that are helping out in there throughout the years. Also, if you have not got my book or my DVDs, you can go to celebratetruth.org. It's a free DVD with every order right now. And guys, you don't even have to buy it if you don't want to. You can watch it for free on YouTube. Go to my channel, youtube.com/celebrate truth. Go to documentaries and you can watch that. And like we were saying in this episode, scientism, maybe you don't know the difference between scientism and science. Maybe you should take a look and see, because it goes deeper than you can possibly imagine. Appreciate all your support. Thanks again, Devin, for joining the show. We are out of here. We'll be back next time. Next week. And we are going to have a fun time next week as well. Got some special surprises coming up. Tune in. Don't go anywhere if you're on YouTube, because the Celebrate Truth 24/7 stream will resume in about 5 to 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone. Good night.